Good afternoon, muffins. Today is still Friday, January 16th, 2026. So I told you back on Wednesday that my topic for this week's Let's Discuss with Muff is about my experience being a teenage mother. So I got pregnant on Easter Sunday, 2003. And I remember a few weeks later going to school, telling my friend, I was like, something's not right. She was like, what do you mean? I was like, I think I might be pregnant. She was like, is your period late? I was like, no. I was like, but I got nauseous smelling my perfume. So my favorite color is purple. And the guy that I was dating at the time bought me Love Spell from Victoria's Secret for Christmas that year because it was purple. And I loved the way that it smelled. I wore it every day in some capacity. I had everything that you could buy of Love Spell, okay? And I didn't like the smell. And so that night was our anniversary, so we went out. We went out, and and we talked about it, the possibility and all this other stuff. And the next day, my mom came into my room and she was like, hey, I'm about to go to the store, is there something that you want? I was like, yeah, bring me some popsicles. And so she was like, okay. So about 30 minutes later, she came back into my room and she was like, I just did something that I haven't done in years. She was like, after I made my bed, she was like, I laid across the pillows. She said, I only did that when I was pregnant. She was like, and I haven't been pregnant in a very long time. She was like, and I can't get pregnant. And she was like, are you pregnant? And I was like, I don't know. And started crying, right? And so she left. She went to the store. She got my popsicles and she got me a pregnancy test. So I go to her room and I take the pregnancy test and it's positive. And we kept that pregnancy test for a long time. And she called my boyfriend's mother, told her what was going on, and his mom wanted to talk to me. And she was like, well, hey, how are you? I was like, I'm good, how are you? She was like, that's not what I hear. And I was like, I'm pregnant, but I'm good. And that kind of was the beginning of all of the negativity. I mean, people were so negative, and it was mostly adults. My classmates didn't say mean, harsh things to me. They were shocked because I was quiet, but they didn't say mean things to me. In fact, now, don't get me wrong, none of them wanted to get pregnant, okay? But the way that I carried myself as a young woman, a teenager not young woman, sorry, but a teenage girl who was pregnant, they did applaud my efforts because, they saw me like nurturing certain things. Like I was cross-stitching my baby a blanket, okay, in school, and other little things that they noticed, but it was all the adults that were so negative, telling me that I wasn't going to raise my child, my mother would be raising my child, telling me that all of the plans and dreams and goals that I had for myself, I had thrown them completely away. Parents didn't want their children hanging with me, and it's not like I was hanging with their kids before I got pregnant anyway, but they didn't even want them talking to me. It's like parents wanted my peers to completely ostracize me. I remember I was in chorus and we had a lot of different things, whether it was competitions or performances, and parents would attend, and parents just did not want their kids even talking to me, you know. I remember I was walking across the courtyard at my school, minding my business, waddling away, okay, trying to get to where I was going. And the vice principal called me over to her and she was like, "Why'd you do it?" And I was like, "Why did I do what?" And she was like, I was like, "Have sex or get pregnant?" And she was like, "Both." I was like, "Well, I wasn't trying to get pregnant." I was like, "But sex feels good if you're doing it right." And she was like she was just shocked by my response. And you know, I went home and I told my mom what she said. But the thing was, I was tired. I was tired of people being so negative. I was tired of people telling me that basically I would no longer amount to anything because I got pregnant. And not one adult outside of the ones in my family said anything encouraging. Not one. And the thing about that was, it's like, not that I needed their validation. I didn't need their approval. I didn't need their okay with my life. But I had to fight that much harder to reassure myself that I would become something, that I could still make something of myself, and that I had not, in fact, thrown my life away, and that I would accomplish the things that I wanted to. Now, my mother was absolutely amazing. My mother was so supportive. I remember her telling me, she was like, "I'm not going to tell you what to do." She was like, "It's up to you." She was like, "If you decide to have the baby, okay. If you decide not to, okay." She was like, "But you don't let anyone tell you what to do in this moment." She was like, "I'm your mother, and I'm not forcing you to have an abortion." She was like, "So you don't let anyone else." And so I sat with that for about a week, you know, trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And I mean, it was a tough week. But I remember getting up one day and going to the bathroom, looking at myself, and I was like, "I'm gonna have my baby." And I called my mother, and because she was at my godmother's house, and I was like, "Hey," I was like, "I just want to let you know that I'm gonna have my baby." And she was like, "All right, cool." She was like, "I'll see you later." And my mother made sure that I had the best. Just so happened the doctor who delivered me when she was pregnant with me was still practicing. So he was my OB. And it was so funny. We called him a grand obstetrician because, you know, he delivered me, and now he was about to deliver my baby. And he took great care of me. And, you know, my mother stood by me when people tried to make her feel bad. She defended her stance and me. People were like, "Well, how do you feel about your child being pregnant?" And she was like, "That's not what I wanted for my baby." She was like, "But I'm not going to mistreat her. I'm not going to belittle her. I'm not going to talk down on her." And everyone took that to mean that, like, she was okay with it. And it wasn't that she was okay with it. Her thing was, I can't change it. and she refused to force me. And years later, you know, I got more of an understanding of why that was. There were some regrets that she had from some things, you know, and so she just decided that she wasn't gonna go that path again. And she held true to, because I remember her telling someone, she was like, I want my child to enjoy her pregnancy as much as I enjoyed being pregnant with her. And my mother did. My mother, whatever I wanted to eat, she either made. Most of the time she cooked. My mother was a great cook. I say was because she doesn't cook anymore. She is still alive. If you have gone back and you saw the reel that I made, my mother is still alive. So when I say was, it's because she doesn't cook anymore. But my mother was an amazing cook, an amazing baker. And so whatever I had a taste for, my mom either made it for me or she went and bought it for me. I woke up to breakfast every morning that summer, and whatever I wanted. And my mother, I had the cutest maternity clothes. You know, I dressed so cute, you know, I kept my hair and my nails done, and my mother threw me a baby shower, and people even had an issue with that, you know, that my mother threw me a baby shower. But my family was like, for them, it wasn't the end of the world. I had 2 aunts who got pregnant in high school at 16 and 17, and they went off to do amazing things. They got their education. One went on and got several degrees. The other, you know, became the director of the program from the job that she had. So my family did not believe that I wasn't going to be able to do something with my life. My grandfather, who was also the pastor of my church, you know, oh my gosh, I heard a horror story that someone was made to get up and apologize to the church for getting pregnant. My grandfather did not do that to me. He did not shame me that way. You know, my family was very supportive, but it would have been nice to not have to still battle some of the negativity that I faced, because it stayed in the back of my head. It forced me to put unnecessary strain and stress and pressures to make sure that I did something. And it put unnecessary stress on me as a mother, trying to make sure that my daughter, you know, didn't do certain things or did do certain things. And neither one of us deserved that. But, you know, and that's why I say, you know, when my baby was like, Mommy, we made it, I was like, yeah, girl, we did. Because people don't realize that what you say carries so much weight and so much impact on someone's life that they have to battle on top of the things that they're already battling. Because even though I had the support of my family and of my mom, like, I had my own fears already, my own worries, my own anxiety about becoming a mother, you know, how I was going to be able to give this little being the best and everything that she deserved when I was not ready, you know. And as my child got older, I tried to make sure that she understood that even though I was not prepared for her, I never looked at her life as a mistake. I didn't. And so when, you know, it came time for me to have the talk with her, you know, I was very candid. I was very open with her, because also too, the one thing that I have said, and I've even said it to my mom, was like, I don't blame my mother for getting pregnant, but my mother didn't know that I was sexually active. And there was just no conversation about it. There was no follow-up about, okay, well, we need to get you on birth control. We need to make sure that these things are in place. And I did decide that I wasn't going to not follow up when it came to my children. I was going to make sure that I initiated conversations. I was going to make sure that I didn't just let certain things just go and not go back to it. And so it allowed, but it did make me have certain conversations with my children as they got older that I didn't shy away from, because my job is to inform, advise, and educate my girls and help them navigate life, and to give them the tools to do that. And, you know, and even when I remember being in school, and one of the conversations came up about, you know, or do you, you know, if you put your child on birth control, are you saying it's okay for them to have sex? And I said, at the end of the day, to me, it's not me saying it's okay for my child to have sex. What I'm saying is, I'm not forgetting the fact that I was a teenage girl who had sex. My mother not talking to me about sex did not deter me from having sex. Me not having all of the information to prepare myself did not stop me. And because of that, I was like, I'm not going to do the same thing. And because of that, I allowed myself to have the uncomfortable conversations with my daughter, and to create a space where she could talk to me about those things. And, you know, so I am grateful for that aspect of it. And I'm so grateful that my mother was as supportive as she was, because the other pregnancies that I had, they were hard. I got pregnant at 20, and the guy was less than supportive, and me begrudgingly decided to have an abortion. And that carried grief for years, that carried regret for years. And I've endured 2 miscarriages, and I've also had 2 other births, but those pregnancies were both difficult. Carrying them full term, they were both hard on my body, for different reasons. And so the only pregnancy that truly was easy on me was the one that I had at 16. And I think about the gift that my mother gave for that, because, like, as much as I was excited to be pregnant with my babies, I can't change the fact that physically it was hard on me. Pregnancy is hard on the body, but those were extremely difficult. And so my mother gave me a beautiful gift. And I think back to, what if she had berated me and belittled me like everyone wanted her to? You know, then every pregnancy would have been hard. No pregnancy would have been enjoyable for me. But my mother made sure. And it's a gift that, you know, I hold dear. You know, my daughter had a nursery. I remember my mom taking me to be able to go pick out my baby's furniture. And I had a chair in her room, so when she would wake up in the middle of the night, I could go into her room and take care of her. She had a changing table. You know, it was amazing. It was an amazing experience. The baby shower, you know, when some of the people from high school came to the baby shower, they was like, "Oh, it's a real baby shower," and I'm like, yeah, like, you know, there were games and food and all of the things. It was Winnie the Pooh themed, because that was going to be the baby's theme for her nursery. And I was cross-stitching her a blanket and everything. And so it was a time. And I remember even my grandmother buying me a nightgown to wear in the hospital. And so my family was so supportive. And because their thing was, you may be young, but you still gonna do this right. So I wasn't about to go out here looking any kind of way. I wasn't, you know, my family truly was there and they supported. But in the back of my mind, there was always some doubt and fear that I was trying to outrun. To be successful in life and to say that my dreams could still become a reality. And, you know, I look at my babies. I have 3 beautiful girls, and I just think about, you know, all of that they are here, and I was still able to go and get several degrees myself. I have an associate's, a bachelor's, and a master's degree, and sometimes even contemplate getting my PhD, but I was still able to do that. But I think I didn't need the added pressure. I think I still would have tried to do all that I accomplished, but the added pressure wasn't all that helpful. You know, it put unnecessary stress on an already stressful situation. And we don't have to berate girls who get pregnant in high school. You know, we don't have to make them feel bad, to say that, okay, you know, we're concerned about you, you know. But overall, my experience was good. It's just that the things that get stuck in your mind, that you hear in the background, it gets hard to it was hard to kind of shut it down and quiet it, you know, because I wasn't just trying to be successful for me anymore. I was trying to be successful for my daughter, and to still be a role model that she could look up to. So I put a lot of pressure on myself and kind of on her, that as she got older, I had to relieve and free both of us from that. And the older she has gotten, I explained that to her. I said, I was trying to be what I thought I had to be, you know. And I don't think people understand that. But so it wasn't, because I even went through the whole, you know, people wondering if the baby was his and all that other stuff. Like, I had to fight through some things. Like, you know, his mom, his paternal grandmother, a few of his aunts, you know, they were like, is this even his baby, you know? And she came out looking just like them people, okay? That relationship is even better too, I'm glad to say. But it was rough for a time. It was rough for a time, you know, because people didn't care what they said to me and how they said it and how it was going to make me feel. And I was still a young girl who needed support of her community. I didn't need the bashing within my own community. I needed their support and their love and their guidance and their encouragement is what I needed. So I thank God for the family unit that I had that gave that, even though they didn't know that I was quietly still dealing with all of those things that lasted years into my 20s. Lasted for a long time. It did. And it shouldn't have. But that is my story. And I hope that it encourages you to keep going. That if you find yourself either pregnant or you find yourself the parent of a teenager who's pregnant, that you, no matter what, keep going and you keep pushing and you keep striving, because your life is not over because you get pregnant as a teenager. Your life isn't over even if you get pregnant and you're older and you haven't accomplished certain things. You know, you can still accomplish whatever you want to. And yes, having a baby at any point, at any time, at any age of your life is going to change your life substantially. You know, we can't hide that. It changes your life. But, you know, the reward of motherhood, man, it's one of the most beautiful things that I've ever experienced. It's one of the most stressful things I've ever experienced, but the love that I have for those little people of mine, oh my goodness, I wouldn't trade that for the world. And people used to ask me, like, if you could do it all over again, would you? And I was like, no, because my babies wouldn't be who they are. If I had changed any part of my life, my babies wouldn't be here, you know. And they are the best parts of me. They are the most beautiful parts of me. They are everything that I could have ever imagined my babies, my girls, to be, and then some. They are my wildest dreams, my wildest and most vivid imaginations in flesh. And yeah. So that is my story, being a teenage mom. And so I will see you all later. Have an amazingly wonderful night, and I'll check back in tomorrow morning. Bye-bye.